business leaders and surgeons and barristers. I see women who are going to win elections and science competitions and arts awards.
Do not be afraid to fail.
We can
Hello, Tiff Talks audience. I am so happy that we have returned and reconnected for our regularly scheduled program for Tiff Talks. We are back with an all new episode, and I am so excited to get started. I hope you guys had the opportunity to watch the previous episode, which was our season opener for season 4, and we charted triple digits within the week. So thank you to all of you guys that had the opportunity to tune in. It's always an awesome opportunity for me to be able to share this part of the platform with the Tiff Talks leadership team, and being able to sit alongside them and share insight and conversation. It gives you guys the opportunity to see us in real time and to see the faces behind the force of this brand. So I hope you guys had the opportunity to watch. If you didn't, please make sure that you go back and tune in. It remains available on our Facebook page. And as I mentioned, we're back today for an all new episode. So for those of you that are new to this platform, my name is Tiffany. I am the owner and operator of Tiff Talks and the host of this podcast. It was created organically, really out of the mind frame and the thought to connect with the community in a way where we would be able to discuss taboo topics that are impacting our community. So we discuss everything from generational wealth to breaking generational curse to mental health to health and wellness and all there is in between. During our last season, season 3, we focused very heavily on tools and tactics and concepts to truly elevate our bloom. And this particular season, we are focusing on leveraging the information that we gathered from last season and really taking it to the next level. So all about tackling those concepts, but in a manner that's going to challenge those taboos and that uncomfortability. And today I am excited to get started to discuss today's topic. So I'm going to hand it over to our top guest for today so that she can introduce herself, share a little insight about the topic for today that we're going to be discussing, and also to share the city that she's from.
Hi, I'm Damona Ware. I'm here from Houston, Texas, born and raised, now residing in Pasadena, of course. I'm the mother of 2 boys. Teenage boys at that. That's a whole different subject. Also, I am an executive administrative legal assistant at a law firm here in Houston, Texas. And we also have a firm in Addison, Texas. So if you need any legal assistance, please reach out. This topic is very interesting because I went through many of these emotions today. So I'm ready to get into it when you are, love.
All right. Yes. So when we kind of map out our season, we discuss topics, of course, that have been heavy hitter for our audience. We oftentimes bring back topics that, were discussed long after the airing date and things that truly our audience wants to hear more about. So you'll see some of the topics repurposed, like mental health, like financial literacy and things of that sort. During our last season, we tackled today's topic, emotional intelligence. And we really just kind of scratched the surface to the point where as our audience began to engage more, as I went on my own journey of healing and self-discovery, I found myself in a place and in a space that I was like, oh yeah, it's more to discuss when it comes to emotional intelligence. So we decided to bring it back this season 4, and for it to be one of the topics that we discussed early on, and to truly build and leverage on that topic. So today we are discussing emotional intelligence 2.0. And I've subtitled it The High. And I'll kind of go into detail in regards to why I subtitled it The High. But to really kind of initiate this conversation, it's important that we truly take the opportunity to look at and to define emotions versus emotional intelligence. So often people get that in itself misconstrued. So my very first question for you is, what do you see is the difference between emotions and emotional intelligence?
To me, I feel like with emotions, it's just basically a retaliation. It's not a thought. It's basically you just going off your exact feeling at the moment. But when it comes to the intelligent part, it's more of you being able to restrain yourself or to conduct yourself in a different manner, to refrain from reacting a way that you would normally react if you didn't really take the time to think about it. So it's a kind of a growing process, really. It's how I take it.
Definitely. And I would completely agree with that. For me, I can say my 2000s, I was the pettiest of the petty. And it was kind of like a light switch. Like I can turn it on and turn it off in 2.9 seconds. But as I grew, as I got a bit older, a bit wiser, I really, began to see emotions as the language of the soul, and really kind of understanding that when it comes to emotions and emotional intelligence, it's not just what you say, it's how you say it.
Exactly.
It also kind of plays into, like you said, being able to practice restraint, being able to understand that everything doesn't necessarily need to be said, that, how you retaliate can be perceived one way and not necessarily what is truly meant to be. So truly being mindful of those things, where I would say I kind of learned to find a median and a balance between emotions and emotional intelligence was really truly kind of searching and seeking my own inner peace. Because that lies within. That's something that you have to do for yourself, something that you have to seek for yourself. And being at a point where I knew and I felt my words hurt other people, and I felt my thoughts and my feelings hurt other people that I had no intentions of hurting, being petty or, having that retaliation within me, I truly had to take a step back and be like, is this something that I really want to put out there? Is this something that I want to be perceived? Is this something that I want to feel,
Yeah.
So for the longest, like, it would burn me when people would say, oh, she's just an emotional person. Like,
yeah,
I take that. I own that. I have been known to wear my heart on my sleeve.
yeah.
But when you talk about emotions and emotional intelligence, I also see it kind of like just as much as passion versus emotional. You can be passionate by something and not be driven by your emotions. But when you're driven by your emotions, you're driven by those things that are, thoughts and feelings and, pleasures and displeasures, and putting those things onto people. And I had to learn for myself that it was all about emotional restraint and being able to practice emotional restraint on a daily basis, because that's what I wanted to receive.
Yeah.
I used to be very kind of big on that.
No, I agree, because I would say mine started, I had to do a big self-reflection of myself after my dad passed. Because after he passed, it was you was gonna get anything from me out of my mouth. And I could kill less. I mean, I was walking out of jobs.
Wow.
If you made me mad, okay, I'm finna go to lunch break, baby. I'm at home. I'm gone. Wow. It got to that point, but it was a situation where I had to kind of address it and face it at the same time, and kind of reflect, and to the point where I was pushing my emotions out on my kids. You know, that's what really made me kind of open my eyes. Like, they don't deserve that.
Right.
Like, they may not feel, they have feelings as well, of course, but they're not feeling what I'm feeling. So I can't push my emotions and feelings on them to make them feel some type of way. Right. So I had to do a self-reflection, like, okay, Mona, chill. Yeah. You need to think about it before I respond. Before they come asking me something, I already got an attitude, or I already know what I want to say. Even with work, going in, and they have one conception of what they want me to do, but in my head, I'm like, no. Right. And it's like I have to fix my face first, because my face talks before my mouth. Yeah. So that's what I had. I'm still working on that. That's God honest truth, but it's something that I have to really work on. But it has come a mighty long way. I've come a mighty long way with it, because at one point it was just like I was shut off from the world. Right.
I can definitely resonate with that. And for me, I used to like love this song and still love this song to this day. The Carrie Hilson, Every Woman Has a Breaking Point. Yes. And when it came out, it was like relating that to, you know, a relationship. But truly in life, just as a given, in every entity of life, whether it be a relationship, whether it be a job, whether it be, you know, cohabitating with someone, interacting with someone, the hats that you wear, every person has a breaking point. True. And making sure that you understand what that breaking point is very important in emotional intelligence, because those are the things that prompt you to say, hey, like you said, I need to chill. I need to head check and heart check myself so that I'm not projecting, you know, these feelings and these emotions on someone else. And you kind of, you know, touched on this just a minute ago, but I'm interested to know like what your breaking point or what your evolution of saying, hey, I need to emotionally grow up. Like I need to establish and seek emotional intelligence within myself so that I can better myself. What was that breaking point or that evolution for you that contributed to your emotional intelligence?
What's crazy, it was truly my son. It was Juicy. It was my son. He brought it to me. He was like, Mama, that has nothing to do with, like, he literally would, like, this is the child that would check you and has no problem with checking you. But he had got to the point where he was sick of it. Like, just because you going through this and you feel this type of way, you can't, you can't make me feel the same way. I have my own opinion. I have my own emotion. I have my own thoughts. And I was like, you know what? You're right. Yeah. You're very right. I mean, I have no control over how you feel. And I don't want to put my feelings upon you. And I don't want to put my anger or whatever I'm going through from work, from personal life, family. I don't want to bring that to them. And they're like, well, what happened to you today? Yeah. You know, like what's really going on, to the point where they want to close themselves off to me. And that's something I would never want. I always want my kids to be open to me. Right. So if we cross that boundary and he puts that block up for me, then that's a problem for me. So I had to fix that so we can bring that block back down, so we can, our open communication can always be there. Right. I don't want that.
That's good. And that reminds me of a conversation that I had with Kim, my husband, just recently about remaining approachable. Yeah. Oftentimes we don't make notice of that block or that wall, like you said, until someone else checks us on it. And we create this protection, if that makes, you know, sense. We create this wall for our own protective instincts or for our own kind of sheltering arms around ourselves, not thinking what it does to other people. And when you are focused on trying to manage emotional intelligence, you have to remain approachable. You have to remain at a place where you okay with being checked, you know, being receptive of being checked. Because if you're not receptive of being checked, then you're shutting yourself out from an open, like you said, line of communication. And that's a two-way street. Yeah. That is definitely a two-way street. I think for me, when my emotional intelligence definitely evolved first in my work environment. And I would have to say that because just in every entity of my life, I'm a very vocal person. Like I have no problem with expressing how I feel. And like you said, I'm one that truly believes that you can't take my feelings or my emotions away from me. I'm entitled to feel that way, regardless of how you feel. And just the same for you. And in that, when I started working where I am now, I was kind of known to be the vocal person. Like I was immediately positioned as the voice of the people because regardless of what was going on in the office, like I always had something to say about it. And it had gotten to the point where my leadership knew that Tiffany was going to have something to say about it. So if there was a meeting, if there was a change, whether good or bad, like I had something to say about it. And it gotten to the point where becoming the voice of the people was hindering me more than it was helping me, if that makes sense. And I will never forget, like my director pulled me to the side and she head checked me, kind of like what Juicy did for you, being able to say, you know what, Tiffany, everything doesn't need to be said. And when you become the voice of the people, you lose your own voice. When you become the voice of the people, you misuse or misquote the people who become your people. And now being in leadership, I see that. Like, if I always have something to say and I'm not receiving the information, then I'm negating that two-way street. I'm negating that open communication that is needed for me to be the best leader that I can be. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So for me, my evolution in emotional intelligence truly started within my workplace, but quickly trickled into my everyday life. And I would say, like, when I began to practice restraint in these meetings and began to practice restraint in this environment, to my colleagues, it was like, oh, she don't got nothing to say today. Like, you know,
surprise.
Because I'd gotten to the point where it was like, okay, I need to learn how to pick my battles. But in my personal life, it became where I learned to practice self-discipline and practicing self-discipline in a way where I truly just learned kind of the idea and the concept of moderation and learning the power of restraint and the power of restraint in love and really just practicing it on a everyday basis. I would have to say learning self-discipline in my personal life came from being in so many kind of lean seasons back to back. And, you know, when you are in a lean season, I think that's probably the most vulnerable that you ever are in life. And that vulnerability can be a good or a bad thing. You're vulnerable in a state where you know that you're in need. But being in need, if it's not accepted for yourself and you don't latch on to the right source, then that need can definitely be trumped and be pressured into something that it shouldn't be. And for me, like being in that lean season, I always call it like the waiting room. Because, you know, when you're in the lean season, you definitely like waiting on something. So being in that waiting room, I would find myself like driving my own self crazy with anxiety or being led by emotions where I would become codependent on something or someone that likely didn't have my best interests at heart. And so many people, when they think about codependency, they immediately equate it to drugs. And that's not, you know, that's not always the truth. Like there's so many other things in life that can do harm to you that you can become codependent on that has nothing to do with drugs or nothing to do with substance use. And I remember like when we had our very first minority mental health symposium, we talked a great deal about being codependent and being at a place of coping versus treatment and really kind of refining what my emotional intelligence looked like. I start to think about that concept. Like when you think about coping, as it relates to codependency, as it relates to emotional intelligence, I think about coping in a manner where you become codependent or coping in a manner where you relying on peer pressure or easily moved at a vulnerable state by other things or other people versus treatment and emotional intelligence would have to all do with like action, taking action, and like you said, addressing the situation so that you can be a better person.
Yeah.
So my question for you is, what are your thoughts about coping versus treatment as it relates to emotional intelligence?
I mean, I always feel like you have to address the issue, but piggybacking off of what you were saying about being in a vulnerable state, I can go back to even being in a relationship in a vulnerable state, and at a time where I was just all over the place. But this certain someone filled that void I thought that I needed. You know what I mean? But at the same time, it was toxic out of this world. So it made me it made the situation even worse than building me up. It didn't help the situation at all. So it's like it was more that I had to address the situation. Like, Mona, what is it that you're really trying to cope with? What is it that you're really trying to face? So I have to sit there and address that and come face to face with it and be like, I need to take this on head on first before I can even deal with anybody else, or I can even cope with the rest of the world. Because at that point, like, again, I was at the point I was just shutting myself off. Like, nobody would see me.
Right.
Like, what Mona? At home. At home. I just didn't have, I was just at that point. Because I knew if I went out, the attitude that I had and the feelings that I was feeling at the time, even it wouldn't have been good. You know what I mean? It would have been very negative.
Right.
I wouldn't have been the life of the party. I wouldn't have been happy, jolly Mona, goofing, playing around. I would have just been a body just there. So I feel like you have to address stuff head on first before you can even proceed to do anything else. It's like you have to face it, like sit down and map it out if need be and say, this is my issue. This is what I need to work on.
Right.
And take it. I mean, nothing happens overnight, of course. So it's like I have to take everything step by step.
Right.
I can maybe have to set a goal, like, okay, like this month I'm gonna work on this about me. Like, Mona, watch your mouth when you're talking to such and such. Mona, refrain from doing this. You know, it's like different little goals that I had to set for myself to make sure that I stayed in a calm mental state to even deal with my everyday life.
Right. That's good. I like you sharing the fact that in that space where you were coping, that you found yourself in a position where you shut yourself out from the world or shut yourself out from things that may, would have helped you or would have been that treatment to address what needed to be addressed. But in that, you had to get to a point where you had to say, okay, what is it that I need to work on? What is it that I need to address for myself? And that so many people don't have that, or they are so comfortable with coping, so comfortable with shedding out the world, with shedding out those things that are going to head check them and heart check them, that they stay in that coping state longer than need be, than addressing the issues head on. That's good.
That's why I had to just put out a goal. I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna shut myself out no more. Let me get out the house. Let me go to Tiffany's. Let me go here. Let me go there. Let me do my thing. And plus now my boys keep me so busy. And then once I find different other things, I'm like, this is the joy that I needed. Like, this is what lifts me up. This is what keeps me going. So it keeps me from thinking about the negative or the sadness or things of that sort. So it kind of helps me and push me to keep going.
That's good. All right, guys, if you are just now tuning in, then we are here with Damona Ware, and we are discussing emotional intelligence. And she's sharing with us her insight and her experience of her evolution of emotional intelligence, understanding that, like she just said, that it's a process. It's not something that happens overnight. And it oftentimes comes from a standpoint of either being checked by someone are head checking and heart checking yourself and being able to say, what is the root of this? What is it that I am seeking? What is going to, what am I lacking to, resonate with the joy that I'm missing or the joy that I want out of life? So that's good. That's good. I would have to say, to kind of, express what you was just saying in regards to finding that joy and such within, when it's come down to the coping versus treatment, because I've been in a place where I have sat in the coping and not want to address things head on. And I think it's always a manner of how you go about addressing things. When you address things for your own emotional intelligence, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to address one particular person. Sometimes it's like you said, you have to address things within yourself, do your own self-discovery and your own soul searching. And what I found in one particular kind of issue that I had to grow past and love alone, for lack of better words, was that I found myself being codependent initially on like the opinions of other people. And being codependent on the opinions of other people, I was at a state where I allowed myself to be guilted or guilt tripped, guilt pressured into something that I knew that I had grown past. So like in a particular lean season that I'm referring to, I had gotten to the point where I had processed the whole head check myself, was head checked by, my husband, and was at a place where I was like, okay, like these are the things that I need to do for my own inner peace. These are the things that I need to do for my own self-joy. And in the midst of doing that, just in a casual conversation with a close friend of mine, that person literally like guilt tripped me into like relapsing, if that makes sense. Like going back to like questioning the growth that I made compared to their own experience. And I find so very often while we are on this journey of emotional intelligence, we're not mindful of those blind spots. Like we're not mindful of those people, mindful of those things, those triggers that will take us back and minimize our own growth. So my question for you is, what do you find are common blind spots in emotional intelligence?
Just thinking back or going back to old situations, or even, for example, going back to old groups of friends that I used to hang with. Those friends haven't changed. But me trying to elevate,
right,
that takes me on a whole nother, like, well, they still doing good. Like, what's the problem? Like, why can't I still just, hang with this group or do what they do, or, even as grown as I am, you know what I'm saying? Right. But it just takes accountability for myself, that I have to sit here and be like, Mona, you're better than that. You're growing. You have goals, you have kids, you have things that you're looking forward to. So it's like I have to block out that and refrain from even being sometimes associated with it. Unfortunately, I mean, I love a lot of people from a distance. Love never changed, but I love you from a distance.
Right.
Because you're bringing me to a spot or to a place where I don't want to be, even family wise. I have some family that may bring up my dad a lot. I don't need that. So I'm like, I don't really want to be around you right now because I don't want to talk about that. So certain situations, like I just try to refrain from being in those situations or around those type of people.
That's good. I find, for me personally, my blind spots are those nows, those people, places, and things that are triggers for me. And kind of like what you said, like I've grown to a point where I can love people alone. Like you said, I can love you from a distance. The love may not have changed, but I have to do this for myself, for my own inner peace. I have to learn to set healthy boundaries. I have to play my role in the role that is mine and that I'm given, and not the role that I want to be,
Exactly.
And I need to check those seasonal, those lifetime expectations for seasonal people. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's something that I've battled with within myself, because I'm like the all-inclusive person. Like I want to include everybody. I want everybody to be, one big happy family. But in the same token, I understand that some people, places, things are triggers for me and they're not good for me. So in order for me to be the best person that I can be, I have to know what that is and know that boundary and not be guilty when someone say, oh, I didn't see you as such and such, thing. Y'all don't, talk no more. Y'all. It's not that. It's just I'm in a season, I'm in a growing pain for myself that I have to grow past. And not be guilted or feel bad when you've outgrown that person or outgrown that place or outgrown that thing,
Yeah, I call it a restoration season. It's like I'm restoring myself. I'm trying to get better. And trying to get back to the old, not the old me, but the me that I'm supposed to be. And not that downward person or that depressed person or that person full of anxiety all the time. So it's like a restoration season for me.
I like that. The restoration season. I love that. I love it. As I mentioned, when I was kind of guilted back in my relapse, I found myself kind of measuring my own emotional intelligence according to someone else's experience.
Yeah.
And that's something that I had to, head check myself on. Like, my experience is not their experience. Their experience is not my experience. And because that is so, I can clearly, sit in what is my own emotions, take ownership of that, and measure my emotional intelligence according to my own. So I'm interested to know, like, how would you say that you have learned to measure your own personal emotional intelligence?
Really, the self-checking myself, truth be told, it's like I have to get to a point where I have to like reevaluate a lot of situations at this point in my life. Like I refuse to go backwards at this point because I have so much going on between me and my kids. I just refuse for us to go back instead of pushing forward.
Yeah.
So, I mean, of course, that's my motivation and everything I do anyway. So,
yeah, that's good. I've always had this fear of failure, not failure in a state of being where, you fall flat on your face, but fear of failure of not being able to measure up. And that's something that I've battled with probably all of my life. But understanding that failure is a part of the process, failure is a part of those growing pains. Failure is a part of the evolution. Yes. And not being fearful of that is what and how I measure my own personal emotional intelligence. Like you said, it's a process. Like, I'm not going to wake up every day and not be petty. Exactly. It may come. I mean, we only in 2022. I mean, we're not too far out.
No, we just on my team.
I mean, being able to always, like you said, not be stagnated and have a goal to make myself better every day. Like, I remember Ken saying in the first episode, like, if you focus on just improving yourself 1% out of a day, 1% every day, you will catapult yourself to 365% further than you were the year before.
It makes a big difference.
So if I can always strive to make the best part of me even better, then that is what I measure my own emotional intelligence against. Being able to practice self-discipline on a regular basis. My life is very fast-paced. It's always something for me to do or have been doing. But learning to take a step back, learning to take a pause before I speak, to process to process my words before and filter them before they come out of my mouth. I got on Chase, my son, this week about, like, are you listening to hear me or are you listening to listen? And that's the same thing with emotional intelligence. Are you receiving the information to respond? Are you receiving the information to act? Because those are two very different things. And if, I'm finding myself pausing in my speech, like if it's a challenging situation, if it's an uncomfortable situation, then I take a moment to pause before I speak. And sometimes that moment of silence can be awkward for the next person.
Yeah.
Because they don't know.
But a lot of times that moment of silence is very needed. Prime
Yes.
example, I was going through a message today with a friend of mine, and he wanted to argue about something, and then I had to stop. I was like, I'm not even about to type all this.
Yeah.
Because it's not gonna go nowhere.
Right.
Because what I'm about to say is really built off of how I feel my emotion right now. So I had to refrain from that and just put a simple, okay.
Yes. It's okay for me. It's kind of like no. A period follows it oftentimes.
It's an exclamation point.
Yes.
Okay.
The appropriate punctuation will immediately follow it. But yes, I agree. Like being able to process within myself has done a great deal. I'm reading a book right now. I'm almost finished with it. It's entitled The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. And it talks a lot about, living in the moment, being mindful of your own judgment and not, being non-judgmental in every moment, and being able to receive things as they are. Like, don't set expectations, just receive it as it is and trust that it's always going to work out. So I've been practicing it. Like, I agree. In moments where I want to respond to that email, where I got a lot to say, I used to be like, I hope this don't work today. Now I'm like, let me take a minute. Let me, gather how I feel before I respond to this email. So I'm responding to it in the best possible way, professional way. Is practicing emotional intelligence. And if it's just thank you for your insight. Yeah. Okay. Like, those have been my response. And to some people that may make them feel uncomfortable, but for me, it's practicing self-restraint. It's practicing self-discipline. It's setting healthy boundaries. It's practicing emotional intelligence in real time. So I completely agree with that. Yeah. So, of course, to wrap up our talk time, it's important that we, not only discuss emotional intelligence, but also offer some tactical ways that emotional intelligence can be applied in everyday life. So my question for you is if you would share a word of advice and 2 action steps to work toward establishing emotional intelligence.
First off, like we've been saying, self-check. Take time out for yourself, reevaluate what it is that you're going through or what it is that you feel that is hindering you from pursuing and being the better you that you are supposed to be. Mm-hmm. I would say to just refrain from the situations that and deep down in your heart, that's not the way to go. Just try to block yourself from different situations, even if you have to distance yourself at times. To me, distance is sometimes well needed. Because sometimes that's time that you need between yourself. Me is between me and God. I need some me and God time for a second, and then I'll be back to y'all. Yeah. And then I can come back and I'll be able to speak to you effectively. Yeah. I'll be able to communicate with you in a nice tone, voice, and everybody can get their point across. If there is a confrontation, an issue or something like that, you know what I mean? So I would just say, to me, everything starts within self. Mm-hmm. And that's what I had to learn, because I'm very nonchalant. Yeah. Very nonchalant. And I have it bad. I'm still working on it. Because I'll be like, okay, whatever, it is what it is. Mm-hmm. And I won't care. But deep in my heart, I'm like, I can't believe that just happened. Mm-hmm. But I really do care. But at the same time, I'm not going to show you that emotion. Right. So it's like I have to self-evaluate and get my own self together, and then be able to speak to someone, and then be able to converse with whatever situation or person that you're trying to deal with at the time.
That's good. I love that. I love, of course, the head checks, the heart checks.
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer in that. I've grown to be a firm believer in that. And it was a very dear friend of mine who like brought that to my attention, being able to self check yourself, and head check yourself. And
Yeah.
I completely agree with that. My my emotional intelligence is truly grounded in peace and
Yeah.
seeking peace, and being able to understand that peace is not just a principle, it's also a person.
Yes.
And that person is within me. So if I can seek the peace, the person that is within me, then I can also make sure that that is given, and that that's exuded in every interaction that I have. And of course, like you said, it's gonna take some head checks, it's gonna take some heart checks, it's gonna take, some pauses.
Yeah.
But that is what I need in order to make the best pieces of myself better.
And I feel like if you have peace within yourself, and people, once you have it in yourself, that exudes onto the people that you attach to, and they to see it, they can feel that on you. Like I just like her spirit. I just
Yeah,
like being around her. Like
yeah,
I just, it's that they can't put a pin on it. They just like, it's something about you. I
yeah,
just like being around you. It's because
yeah,
you had that peace within first.
yeah,
Because
yeah.
if you don't, if you holding all this hatred in, or all these other things that are hardening your heart, they're
Mhm.
gonna feel that as well. That something is wrong with her. I don't know if I want to be around her.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's like you have to check yourself. You have to have that peace within if you want others to, be even around you.
Yeah,
And that way that peace can rub off on them
yeah, that's
to the
true.
point where they want to actually reevaluate themselves. Like,
Mhm.
let me check myself.
Yep, yep. I find that emotions are oftentimes unhealed scars,
Yes.
and understanding that healing is a process.
Yeah.
For me, that has made it evident that you can overcome. Like if you can go through the process of healing, if you can go through the process of checking your emotions, of being and seeking peace, to reevaluate peace, to do away with those negative emotions, those negative feelings, those negative displeasures that you're holding on to, then that's evident that you can overcome. So
True.
I completely agree with that. And just like you said a moment ago about being able to have that sacred time with God, that's so very important. And whether you are a believer or not,
True.
whether you believe in God or the universe, completely up to you.
Whatever higher power.
Whatever higher power that you believe in, it's important that you have that time one-on-one, so that you can reconnect and realign. That is so
Yes.
very important in being able to practice emotional intelligence, to be realigned with the things that are going to exude the best pieces of yourself.
And when you do it, you'll realize how your days change,
Mm-hmm.
how your days will start just going smoother
Yep.
and smoother. The things that you thought was so big and couldn't overcome,
Yep.
that's chump change to you now. Like
Yep.
everything just goes right. Everything is aligned.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's true. Okay, that's good. That's good. This has been an awesome discussion, by the way.
So
Um, so for every episode, the way that we wrap up is that I ask our guests to share their testament from this particular episode. So out of everything that we've discussed, out of everything that you shared with us today, what is that one thing that you want to be sure that our audience takes with them and apply to their everyday life?
I would want everyone to always and continue to reevaluate themselves and keep the peace, like we just about to speak and talking about. Keep that peace within and get the peace within. Have that self time and have that time to yourself where you can become one with yourself, so that you can be help other people or be a contribution to anybody that's around you. And that's what I would really want people to do, because that would help the world in general, truthfully.
Yeah, that's true. That's awesome. I think my testament for this episode is to make sure that in every area of your life that you seek peace and practice self-discipline.
Yeah.
Because if you are seeking those things and practicing that on a routine basis, then everything will align, like you said.
True.
I think it's very important that when we talk about emotional intelligence, that, like you said, is something, and like I truly believe it's something that starts within. So if you are on this journey for yourself, then you have no means or worry to be guilt tripped into someone else's experience,
Exactly.
or be at a vulnerable state where you align with someone else or align with what may be your nouns or your triggers. It's important that we understand that, this emotional intelligence is a personal thing, but you can't take it personal, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So your journey on emotional intelligence won't be my journey, and my journey won't be yours. Everyone's is different. But in that, you can't take personal someone's emotional intelligence or the lack thereof. So,
I agree.
that's good. This has been an awesome conversation. I am so happy that you've taken time to be a part of the discussion and have joined us and shared your insight. If you would, please drop your handles so people can follow you, and also tag you in upcoming clips that we're going to be dropping from this episode.
Facebook is my government name, Damona Ware. On Instagram, you can Monie, MONIE _loves, LOVES. And also you can find me at my work website at larmanandbrignac.com.
All right, good deal. So a couple of announcements for you guys. As you know, we are in our season of Community Empower. We're actually going to be launching our it's the 5th volume, but the first volume of issue 2. So it's considered issue 2, volume 1. Okay. We're going to be launching that on March the 1st. So we are in that window. If you have not checked out or had the opportunity to read the past Community Empower magazines, they do remain available for purchase on our Shopify website, storefront. We've also had some really cool new inventory that showcased this week, which is our Power Seeds affirmation booklet, as well as our signature Tiff Talks sweatshirt and our generation.
I wear that faithfully.
Yes.
Faithfully.
This Power Seed affirmation book is something, y'all, like, it is a true token and something that you can apply to your everyday life. It's small enough that you can carry it in your purse with you moving on your job. You can share it with other people, and it also has conversation starters. So conversation starters for families, conversation starters for couples, conversation starters for your peer group, to truly kind of dive in and have a very thought-provoking conversation about power, but also about affirmations that empower us. So I definitely encourage you to check that out. Also, I encourage you guys to tune in to this next Talk Tuesday that's going to be coming up on February the 1st. Executive Talk partner Ken Shay Saxton will be joining us, and she has some things that she's going to share. So that Talk Tuesday definitely may go over 11 minutes, but it will definitely be just as good. So I encourage you guys to check out and to set your notifications for that. Outside of that, that concludes this talk time for this evening. Thank you guys for being a part, for sharing with us the best that you could give of yourself, and that is your time. Make sure that you follow us on all of these social media platforms here, and remain connected for season 4, which I have coined the leverage season. All right. Nice. Mona, thank you once again for being a part. I appreciate
Thank you for having me, cousin.
Of course, anytime. And make sure that you guys also follow Mona and continue to just remain connected as a community. Happy Sunday to everyone, and always remember to keep talking